All right, welcome everyone to BlueSky Citadel Cybersecurity Training. My name is Esther Adeyemi, and I'll be your host tonight. I'll be the one taking us through the introduction to cybersecurity. I'm a cybersecurity analyst, and before we dive into tonight's session, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. My background is in engineering. And over the years, I've worked in supply chains operations. I worked in manufacturing. I worked briefly in education before I transitioned into IT. And how did I get into IT? I'll just tell you, it's just my curiosity about how the IT world is. I just keep hearing everything IT, and I said, oh, I really don't know which area of IT I really want to go into. And I started researching about different areas of IT. And I find myself tilting towards cybersecurity. That I said, what is this cybersecurity all about? And by the time I started reading more about cybersecurity, I discovered that most of these concepts is what I've probably been using in my day-to-day activities. And it becomes so easy for me to just make my decision to say, oh, I'll be a cybersecurity analyst. And I found about BlueSky. And just like you are in today's session, sometimes ago last year, I also was in this same session listening to Lady Pat talk about cybersecurity, and I knew I had to make my decision. And here am I today in my most recent role, working in identity and access management, an area of IT security. And I'll tell you so far, I enjoyed what I'm doing, and I believe I have the experience to share with you today how to get started into cybersecurity. So we're going to look at what is cybersecurity. Like I said, if you have any question during the presentation, please just drop it into the chat, and I want us to ask questions. If you're in doubt about anything, there will be time for us to ask questions also towards the end of the session. So we'll look at what cybersecurity is. Why is it so important? Why is everybody so cybersecurity conscious? What are the basics of cybersecurity? What do we need to know about cybersecurity? Are there common cyber threats that affect us in our day-to-day life? Let's just look at it from our own personal lives and for every organization we are working for. What are the simple cybersecurity technologies that we can easily understand and we can use them? Different types of cybersecurity. What are the best practices? Different career paths in cybersecurity. And at the end of this session, I know we would have had the understanding of the basic key concepts that will help us also to make informed decision if this is the right thing or the right career path we want to choose. So what is cybersecurity? The first thing I want to correct here tonight is when we hear the word cybersecurity, a lot of us think, oh, it's only IT professionals. They should be responsible for cybersecurity. But that is not true. As long as you're someone that open your email every day, you make purchases online with your credit cards, you browse the internet, I know in one way or the other, you put security measures in place when you're on the internet. You don't want to expose your credit card information on the internet. And what you're doing is simply cybersecurity. And that tells us that everyone is responsible for cybersecurity, either in our personal life or even in our organizations. We ensure that we don't expose our data to probably our colleagues because we don't want them to see what they're not supposed to see. There are some confidential documents and information that is only peculiar to some set of people in the organization that no one else should see it. That is cybersecurity. And the primary goal of cybersecurity is just to do one thing, to prevent unauthorized access. Because what happens when someone gets hold of an information they are not supposed to see? They can pretend to be somebody else. They can steal the information, they can use it to commit crime. And when they do that, they can damage the reputation of the data owner. And that tells us how important cybersecurity is. For data protection, like I mentioned earlier on, it safeguards our personal information, our financial information, our credit card details. Some of us, we have businesses, our intellectual property. Nobody wants to work and put in research into building a business plan, having a business plan in place, and carelessly just leave it for somebody else to pick it up and start their own business. That is why cybersecurity measures is important to ensure that these do not happen. Because if such a thing happens, it can disrupt business operations. It will put that particular business out of business. They stop business because somebody else is using their proprietary data to start their own business. And this can lead to loss of trust and reputation from such business because their customers will not trust them again. Business is not the same as usual. They will lose their trust, they'll lose their reputation, and they can even run into financial loss. Let's take a look at it from another example. For financial institutions like banks, if they face a kind of cyber attack, what is going to happen to them? Their customers won't just keep quiet. They are going to find them. They will tell them, you have to pay us back our money. And such an organization or financial institution is going to lose millions and millions of pounds or dollars. Another reason why cybersecurity is so important is because businesses, organizations have to comply with regulations and legal requirements. Most of us that live in the EU, we know a lot about GDPR, that is the General Data Protection Regulation, that is responsible that for everybody living in the EU, organization or businesses that processes such information of residents in the EU must be careful with the way they handle their personal data, most importantly, names, addresses, health information, things like that, because no one wants their information exposed on the internet because the organization do not have the necessary cybersecurity process or regulation in place to keep their data safe. That is why it is important for regulatory bodies such as GDPR to enforce people, to make sure, to enforce companies to ensure that there is the right cybersecurity measures in place to protect their data and their networks. We're going to look at the fundamentals of cybersecurity. Most of us might have heard of it. It's called the CIA triad. This is the bedrock of cybersecurity. Everything cybersecurity is centered around these three things. That is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality ensures that all sensitive information is only accessible to authorized users. An example of this is encrypting data to protect it from authorized users. For some of us that uses WhatsApp, if you look at it in the WhatsApp chat, if you initiate a chat, you see that at the top it says end-to-end encryption. And that is what WhatsApp have done at the application level to ensure that whatever information you're sharing with the other person in that chat is only visible to the two of you. If peradventure such information is being intercepted because of the encryption method or the process that have been done on such information, they cannot decrypt the data. That makes sure that whatever sensitive information you're sharing with the next person or your friend can only be seen between the two of you. And that's just the beauty of cybersecurity. So sometimes when we use some of these applications, most of us are very confident that there are security measures that has been put in place in some of these applications we use. And sometimes when we are in doubt, that is when we find out that we don't want to send sensitive information across all these platforms. And that takes us to integrity. Integrity is the area that guarantees that data is still accurate and has not been tampered with. This one is used to verify the integrity of data. For example, when we send emails, how the data integrity is being verified is by using something that is called hash functions. For some of us that's done a little bit of mathematics in school, it's just a little mathematical function that it is attached to the email. It's at the back end. We don't usually see it. So when the recipient receives the email, at the back end, the calculations will quickly be done to confirm that what was done on the sender's side of the email is the same results that would come up on the receiver side of the email. If at the end of the day, the equation does not match, then it can be said that this data has been tampered with before it was delivered. That is how they can test the integrity of a data. Availability on its own ensures that data resources are always available to authorized users when they are needed. And this example, we can see it from sometimes when we want to access a particular website, it takes a longer time to load. It's just saying unavailable at the moment. There are so many things that can happen to such a server at that time. Number one, attackers can use it by bombarding that server with different loads of requests. They can generate such requests from their end and just keep bombarding that website to make it unavailable for the people that actually want to use it. And during that time, they try to launch their attacks, making the system not available. So by the time people are still wondering what's happening, they are launching their attacks. Another way availability can happen, non-availability can happen is when there is system shuts down, or maybe there's a system failure. And to ensure that this does not happen, there have to be cybersecurity measures in place. And such things that can be implemented are backups, putting a backup plan. What if there's cyber attack? What if there's system shutdown? How do we put the system running back on time? So implementing redundancy and backup plans to ensure that there is uptime running of the system during any cyber attack. Another very important part of cybersecurity is authentication. This happens to us every day. When you log in with your username and your password on any of your accounts, process of the account telling you successful is called authentication. There are times that maybe probably we mistakenly typed in the wrong password. It will not allow us to access that resource. It's either telling us incorrect password or incorrect username until we put in the right password. Because what the system is trying to identify is, are we who we say we are? Are you sure this is Esther logging in, or is it somebody else? So if I cannot provide my identity to put the correct password, I will not be granted access to use that resources at that time. And that is the work of authentication. And authentication is very, very important. And we can even see these days, there is an extra layer of authentication that most of us know as the 2FA, that's the two-factor authentication, or it's also called multi-factor authentication if it is in different levels. It comes in different ways this day. We have them as one-time password that are being sent to our phone numbers. Sometimes when we log in with our normal username and password, fine, it can be okay for some people, but having an extra layer of security just to confirm, to be sure you're still the one logging in. They send in the OTP to you to impute those numbers. And once you confirm it, then it's good to go. And sometimes they can be like 3 layers. They can ask you to probably use your biometrics again to confirm it. So authentication is very important. It's one of the key components of cybersecurity to even verify your identity before you can access any resources online. And the last one here is called non-repudiation. Non-repudiation is the combination of authentication and integrity. It's a combination of both. And we can find this example when we are using, let's say, for example, we are transferring a fund or we are purchasing something online and it redirects us back to our banking app. At that point, it has happened to me a lot. The first thing it will ask is put in your password or put in your biometrics. What it is doing at that time is trying to tell me, authenticate yourself. Are you sure you're the one making this transaction? And after that time, it's not going to stop there. It's still going to ask you, are you sure you want to continue? All this process is authentication. And what it's trying to do is, as you're pressing yes, continue, is putting on the lock to say, this person have passed the test. The first security question, this person have passed it. The second one, it has passed it. So at the end of the day, if you complete the transaction, you are not going to come back to say, oh, I'm not the one. So non-repudiation is all about accepting and taking ownership of any action you take online. And this is usually seen in digital signature, in any online transaction. It will put you through like different level of security question to be sure you are actually the one performing such actions. So here are some of the key cybersecurity technologies, and I'll test our knowledge so far. I know I've talked a little bit about encryption. If you have an understanding of what encryption is about at this moment, just put it in the chat. Let's see what your knowledge. I've also talked about multi-factor authentication. If anybody know and can explain it, just put it in the chat. Let's see what we have learned so far. So I'll quickly explain how this technology works. Encryption, the method of encryption is, this is what it does. Let's say, for example, you have a plain text to say, you want to send a message to someone and said, hello, this is my PIN number, and you put your PIN number there. For any data to be encrypted, it converts that data into an unreadable format. There are different methods of encryption. They use different special characters and symbols that when the person on the other end receive, it is only when the person that you're sending the message to, the recipients, that can decrypt this message. Because when the data is being encrypted, the sender have the encryption key and the receiver have the decryption key. So even if this message is being intercepted by anyone, they can't see the plain text. What they would just be seeing is those special characters, those codes. They have different formats, so they can't see the plain text. So that is why encryption is what very important for data protection. It's one of the technologies that is used to prevent unauthorized access. You can put some information in a file. It could be like a share folder that everyone have access to. If you don't want to control the access on that folder, you can put the files there. Once it is encrypted, even when it is opened, they can't see what is inside it. So those are some of the key technologies that is used to protect data and resources. I've talked about multi-factor authentication as well. It's just an extra level of protection. It is something that is called defense in depth in cybersecurity, like having an extra layer of defense of security. So aside from your normal username and your password, I know most of us use this authentication app, probably maybe Microsoft one. There's another, there are lots of them on our phone that we can install. After using your normal username and your password, it will send maybe like 3 different sets of numbers. If you're logging in from your laptop, it will tell you that a number has been sent to your phone. So you have to choose the right one. If you choose the wrong one, you can't be authenticated for that particular resources you're trying to access because you chose the wrong one. So that person is not supposed to be who the person is saying he is, because if you put the right number, they would know you have access to your phone at that particular moment. So the next one is antivirus. Antivirus is quite common. Most of us have it on our computers, and the work of antivirus is to detect and remove malicious software such as viruses. And how antivirus work is that it is just like codes, like a programming codes that is being executed, and what it does at the background is to remove any malicious software such as viruses from our device, endpoint devices. It could be phone, it could be desktop computers, it could be our laptop. And the next one is firewall. Firewall, I'll describe firewall as a bouncer. Let's say at a party, there is a bouncer at the gate that is checking the guests as they are coming in to the party. Let's say there is a guest with a fake invite. All the bouncer needs to do is to check the access list that the bouncer have with him or her to say, let me confirm your identity. And if the bouncer cannot find this guest on the list, the access will be denied. That is the same way firewall works. It acts as a barrier between an internal network and the one that is coming from outside. Firewall can be an hardware and it can be a software. And the process of how this firewall work is that it has pre-configured rules to say on this network, let's say, for example, only allow these IP addresses to access these resources. So if the IP address of the device you're using to access that server is not on that list, the firewall would deny that particular device access to that network. That is how firewall works. And the intrusion detection system is similar to firewall. Usually on the network, it is usually behind the firewall. And it does like an extra work to be sure that all the network traffic that have been allowed into the network, in case there is any unusual activity going on, it monitors the network. And if there is anything, it alerts the network to say, oh, there's a potential cyber threat on this network. What should we do? Immediately it is blocked and they remove it. So these are some of the technology. There are quite a whole lot of them, but I have just mentioned these 5 for the purpose of this training. So common cyber threats. I know some of us might have been familiar with number 1, which is phishing. It's quite common. It's the most common one. It happens almost every day, maybe in form of emails, in form of phone calls. You'll see something like getting a call from someone pretending to be a bank official, asking you that your account is down and they need to help you to retrieve it. Can you do something? And all what they're trying to do is to make sure they get out sensitive information such as your personal data from you to be able to exploit you. Most of the time, it comes in form of SMS. So let's be careful. I think these days we see them most on Telegrams, WhatsApp, all these scam messages with links. They come with links. And what they do is they put all this malicious software. They call them malicious software. It's the same thing as malware. They are set of codes. They put them under the link. So if you're not careful, once you click that link, this is what happens. As soon as you click the link, the code will start running at the background and it will just embed itself on your system. It will be there silently. You won't even know. And anything you do on that device after that time is being seen from the attacker's angle. Whatever you're doing, if you're typing in anything on the keyboard, they can record all your actions based on that software that has embedded itself on your network or on your device. And once it is on your network, it is easy for it to spread to any other device under the network in your house. Let's say it's affected your own system. It can creep into the network and go to anyone else's device in your house. That is how serious clicking on all this link, that is how serious it is. So please, anytime you see any email that looks suspicious, you have to know what to do. The first thing is do not click the link. Be sure you're not expecting any email from anyone saying you have just won a lottery or something is happening. Click this link to claim your prize. If you are in doubt, the first thing you need to do is do not click the link. Be sure it is the right email. Be sure the call is coming from the right person before you release sensitive information to people on the internet. The next one is malware. Just as I've explained with the phishing, malware comes through clicking of links from such email or messages, and they find their way into your device. Another way you can get malware into your device is when browsing on the internet. I know some of us, we like free things. Sometimes we see all these ads while we're browsing to say, get a 20% discount if you buy something like this. We find some free software, like maybe we don't have Adobe PDF on our laptop and it's saying download it for free. These are uh, another way that all these attackers embed malicious codes into images. And once you click on it, it will just download the software on your device. And this way too, the malware will just enter into your device and it starts causing a lot of harm. Another type of common cyber threat is what is called ransomware. Ransomware is a kind of malicious software that what it does is once it encrypts your data, what ransomware does, it encrypts the data. And once your data is encrypted, they ask for money. That is ransomware. Something happened in 2015 that it was just this year that I was just trying to connect the dots. A family member's laptop was encrypted. We didn't know then. As of 2015, I didn't even know what was cybersecurity then. It was just lately, I was just trying to connect it. So what happened then was actually ransomware. So I think he clicked on a link. There was an email from the post office saying there's a pack. Click on this link to track where to come and pick it from. And he just innocently clicked on the link. And the next thing, there was this message on the laptop. He couldn't even shut down the laptop. The message was just there saying, pay this amount before your laptop can be released back to you. We still did not even understand what was happening. We took it to the repairer's shop to say, can you help us to take away this message from our laptop? He was trying to explain to us then, but we didn't get it. Eventually, we didn't pay the money. We just left the laptop like that, shut it down, did not charge it for days, and it was just like that, and we left it alone. So this tells us that ransomware is very dangerous. There was even one of this major ransomware that shook the whole world in 2017. You can read more about it. It's called the WannaCry ransomware attack. It's one of the largest cyber attacks that affected over 200,000 computers in the whole world. And what happened was because Windows operating system, there was a vulnerability on the operating system that was discovered by one of these cyber attack groups in one of the Asian country, and they exploited this vulnerability, and all Windows operating systems that were affected were asked to pay ransom. They started from asking each of them to pay Bitcoin, like $300, and the people that cannot pay, they started increasing the money. At the end of the day, for those that paid, they still did not give them the key to decrypt the message. It even affected NHS in the UK because most of the systems were down. All the appointments, surgeries that were supposed to be done were cancelled, and they lost up to £140,000 as at 2017 because their system went down for like 5 days. And in total, globally, all the losses calculated altogether was almost between I think $4 million to $8 million. So it's a lot. Cyber attack costs a lot. So it's easier for us as individuals, or even easier for organizations, to put in cybersecurity, to invest in cybersecurity measures than having to pay so dearly when there's a cyber attack. So I'll quickly go through another form of attack, which is quite common. It's called man-in-the-middle attack. This kind of attack is where there's someone sitting in the middle. For most of us that use public Wi-Fi a lot, we have to be careful. As far as we think that it's a free uh, network, it's not that free because it's not really secured. Whatever thing you're doing when you're a public Wi-Fi, there's always someone in the middle that is seeing everything you're doing. So if you're putting sensitive information, maybe it was at that time you remembered, oh, I need to buy something, and you're typing in your bank account or you're putting in your password, just be rest assured that that Wi-Fi is not safe at that time. So whatever you need to do, maybe you can just probably check your social media handle and just get out, or maybe you need to just do anything that's just easy, maybe just browse through regular website. Do not do any transaction that will require you putting your sensitive information on any public Wi-Fi, because there are most times there are people that are called man in the middle. They are there. So they are diverting all the connection. You think you're sending it to a particular server, but they are the one controlling everything at that instance. And finally, the last one I want to talk about is what is called DNS poisoning. The reason why I'm explaining all this is because these are some of the things that happens to us every day, either we know it or not. DNS poisoning is a process where a particular website that we want to access, let's say, for example, we want to go to Facebook. Facebook have their own IP address. Usually we see the name www.facebook.com. But in actual sense of it, the server does not understand this domain name. They translate it to IP addresses. So every organization that have a domain name have their own corresponding IP addresses. So once you type in www.facebook.com, for example, and you just click search, the IP address is what is going to send to Facebook server to say, hey, someone is requesting access to your website. Should I give the person access? But what DNS poisoning does is that these attackers inject some codes. They call me like SQL query language codes. They attack this code and use it to contaminate that IP address, and they put in their own IP addresses. So indirectly, you will still think you are on the original website, not knowing that you have been diverted to another website, and it will look so real. It will take effort for you to know you are not on the right website. So this way, everything you do on that website, they can see it. They can see it from their hand. Whatever thing you are doing on that website, they will see it. So sometimes when we are browsing, how we can stay safe on this one is, let's make sure that at the top of the browser, any website that we are visiting, let's always ensure that it's a secured website. You will see it as HTTPS. If it is without the S, just know that you are browsing on an unsecured website. Let's just take that into consideration. Okay, let me quickly talk about the password attack. That one is quite common. Please do not use common password. There are software that can, in less than some minutes, can run possible and multiple options of any password that you can use. It only takes the attacker a few minutes for them to try all this possible combination of password to guess your password. Try to use complex password, use combination of different characters, numbers, uppercase, and also do not use common password. There are lots of common password. Do not reuse old password. Do not use the same password for all of your accounts. I know some of us, we don't want to crack our heads to remember so many passwords. So we just use one particular password, maybe just change the number for almost all of our accounts. It's not a good practice, please. If we need to invest in password manager, I know Google have a password manager, and there are some also companies that have password managers. We can invest in that one and put in all our password there. So we only have just one password for that password manager, and that way we can secure our passwords. And just to test our knowledge, I've talked about some of these words. They are common cybersecurity buzzwords. Just like in every other profession, this is what buzzword helps us to do. It gives us that confidence for us to talk about anything as regarding any subject matter in that field. It also helps us to look more professional. So imagine you talking about, oh, that system, there is a weakness in that system have a gap. How about you just saying there's a vulnerability in the system? It looks more professional, you saying that. So just put it in the chat. So far, anything we've talked about, look at all this word, use it to make a sentence, use it to make a conversation. Let's see how much we have learned so far. There's authentication, there's phishing. I've talked about malware, I've talked about firewall. Just say something about firewall, put it in the chat. Say something about encryption. Say anything you know about incident response, and let's see what we have learned so far. If you have any question also, you can put it in the chat. I'm sure Lady Pat will be checking and responding to our questions. So let's quickly talk about types of cybersecurity. Some of us might be interested in the network aspects of security, and this area of cybersecurity is to ensure that the integrity and how we use network infrastructure is safe. That is what network security is all about. For information security, it focuses on protecting sensitive information or data from unauthorized access. Application security on its own ensures that applications are secure during and after deployments. Developers don't just go to sleep after an application has been developed. They keep waiting and waiting for people to give feedbacks, to reviews, to see if there's any bug in the application so that they can go back and fix it, so that they can put patches on those vulnerabilities. So the same thing with cloud security. Cloud security houses all these data applications, infrastructure, anything in the cloud. Cloud security is what takes care of that. And lastly, endpoint security, it ensures that all endpoint devices are things like desktop, laptops, mobile phones, tablets that we use to access online resources. And here are some of the best practices. Best practices, regular software updates. I can't emphasize on this enough. I know some of us still use like old devices that are not being supported. Some people still use Windows 7, Windows 8. The truth of the matter is these OS are not being supported again by Microsoft. So whatever you do on that device on the internet is at risk. The system cannot take the latest security patches again. So let's ensure that whatever system we're using, as soon as we have this notification that there's a new security installation update, please let's quickly click on it and patch our system. That WannaCry attack that I talked about the last time was caused by people not updating the software. Imagine what it cost the whole world in over 150 countries because some people failed to update their to install updates on their Windows operating system. The use of strong password is another best practice for cybersecurity. Like I've mentioned earlier, make sure you have long password. If it can be long up to 16 characters, please do. And ensure you also put in multi-factor authentication. You can install the authenticator app on your phone to have an extra layer of security on your normal username and password. Another way to ensure best practices for cybersecurity in case of any downtime is to have regular data backup. I know some of us do have this external hardware that we put, hard drive that we put some of our information on. But when last did you back up your data? All the data you've been working on for the last 1 month, when last did you back? If anything happens to your laptop today, what happens to all your data? You have to put uh, a plan in place to say, I'm backing up my data every 3 months, or I'm backing it up every quarter, things like that. It helps you like to be on top of anything that happens in case of any loss of data. Awareness and training is another best practice to do. Educating yourself, educating your family, educating employees as an organization about phishing attacks. Just like I've said, if you receive a phone call from somebody pretending to be nice so that they can get information out of you, what do? You block the person. What do you do? If it's in an organization, immediately you report to the IT department and tell them, I received such an email, what should I do with it? So by educating employees, even organization, it will go a long way because employees already know what to do if they receive such an email, not when nobody knows what to do, then they innocently just click on the link. So another way to ensure best practices for cybersecurity is network monitoring. As individual, we can install, there's a software that is called Wireshark. We can install it even on our device to monitor all the network connections in our household. You can use it to monitor your kids, what websites they are visiting, all the IP addresses they are browsing per day. It will go a long way. And if there is any unusual activity on some particular website they are visiting, all you just need to do is to block it. And sometimes you can even shock them. They won't know. By the time you look at it, you can tell them you visited 1, 2, 3 websites today. They'll be like, how did you know? So by constantly monitoring even the Wi-Fi at home, you can prevent cyber attack. So here are some of the careers in cybersecurity. It's not limited to all these ones, but I just have a few of them here. Cybersecurity analyst, which is quite common. What they do is they monitor and respond to cybersecurity incidents. We have the ones that are called the ethical hackers. They are the penetration testers. They are the good guys. Their work is to imitate an attacker. They simulate cyber attack. They attack the system. They are paid to do that. And what they are trying to find out is if there is any vulnerability, if there is any weakness in the system that an attacker can exploit. So before the attacker gets to find out about the vulnerability, they'll be the first one to know. So they just notify the organization to say, oh, we found this bug, quickly fix it before an attacker gets to know about it. So there are security architects as well. What they do is that they design robust security textures for network applications. And the one I also really like is this digital forensic analyst. These are the people that work with crime scene. You know, we've seen them in lots of movies. We see them when they have to like investigate hard drives, computer, phones, all in the bid to find clue to a murder case. So they are called digital forensic analysts. We have the cyber defense incident responder. What they do is that they are the one that identifying and getting rid of attackers while the operation is still unfolding. They are running vulnerability scans on systems to see all the foothold that attackers have had on their system. They are waiting for the right time to strike. So they would have seen that there are some unusual activities on the network and they'll start removing them one by one before the attacker will like launch a full-blown attack. And the overall of it is the Chief Information Security Officer, which is also known as the CISO. This is like the overall boss. This is the goal of where everyone wants to get to. They oversee all cybersecurity strategies and policies for an organization. Is the top role that everyone is aspiring to get to in the cybersecurity field. So in conclusion, cybersecurity is very critical in today's connected world. The digital landscape is getting bigger and bigger every day. New technologies, what is happening to the technologies that we have before? People still focusing on the old technologies. So it is our duty as individuals, as organizations, to ensure that in our own little way, we are protecting our systems, we are protecting our data from cyber criminals. So as individual, please stay proactive, educate yourself, investigate if there's anything unusual happening around your network, if there's anything unusual happening around to your phone, just like as we've been doing, if we receive any scam call, what most of us would do is we block them. And that is just what cybersecurity is all about. Block them, try as much as possible to stay online. And by following best practices, educating yourself, investing in cybersecurity technologies, it doesn't have to be something really expensive. All systems, data, everything can be protected from unauthorized access, and we all will keep and make the world a better place to live in by reducing cyber attack in our own little way. And that will be me tonight. We have any question, you can put it in the chat. And thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for listening. That is me for tonight.